Hello, hello, and welcome to the second half of season 5. I can't believe that we're already halfway through the year. My name is Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can lead a lit up life. And with that, I want to again welcome you. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land,
Hello there. Before we get started with this week's episode, I wanted to pop in here just really quickly and offer up to you 2 different ways that you can work with me. I have private clients that I work with throughout the year to help them quantum leap their business, identify what they want their life to look like so that the business becomes a conduit to that versus running their life. And then the second one is a women's mastermind. This is the second one to kick off, and I'm so excited to start this one in 2024. And I believe the retreat is going to be potentially in Belize, but keep an eye out for it. But this is where we get together, again, quantum leap your business, but it's with a group of other really high vibrational, successful business women that want to level up, want to continue to progress in their achievements and in their business. So with that, click away on the website and check out those exciting events. I'd love to either see you as a private client or in the 2024 Women's Mastermind. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. My name is Debbie Heiser, founder of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser, and I am excited to be here today. I've been toying with a couple of different topics, and I've been kind of percolating on this idea of the difference between having your true identity and your purpose. And it's interesting because in our culture, we tend to look at our identity as like, I hear people say I'm a perfectionist. Well, that's not really your identity. That's something you've attached to yourself. That's like a characteristic of what you've attached to yourself. And so when I think about purpose, and I looked it up because I thought I want to figure out what the definition of this is. And so purpose is, in the verb tense of it, is an intention or an objective. So for me, it gives the impression of some action, right? There's an intention to something that we're doing. There's a goal, there's an objective to be accomplished, right? A being, like, being your true identity is about being. We are human beings, not human doers, right? And so it kind of goes back and forth with this because identity is being who or what you are. And there's a lot of things that can make up who you are. However, it feels like to me in our culture that we tend to take and make our identity about what we do for work. And a lot of what I do with people is help them get in touch with who their being is. And so as I think about your true identity and who you are, if you think about that, and maybe take a moment to list out a few things about, like, who are you? And not just the roles that you play. We tend to attach those, like, oh, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a blah, blah, blah. Well, that's a title, that's a name. But, like, who are you? Who is this internal person? Right? Again, like, I could say I'm generous, but that's a characteristic. Now, it doesn't mean, but it's a characteristic, meaning that that's wrong in describing your identity. But your identity is not in what you do. However, I'm going to turn around and kind of say this a little differently. It's what you are. Like, I know to the core of my being that I am a connector. I love connecting people. It is part of my DNA. It's a part of who I am. I also know that I am an influencer. I know that when I talk to people about a product I'm using, they become very interested, and I have some ability to influence, and part of that is my ability to build trust pretty quickly. But what happens is then they build that trust in who I am, and so I can influence them, if that makes sense. So I know that I have this ability to influence. I know that who I am as a connector. I know that I also am a teacher. And how do I know this? It goes way back in high school. I was teaching piano lessons as my first job, and I was teaching to children and adults. So I know teaching is just a part of my blood, right? It's like who I am. I love helping people see and understand new concepts. When a light bulb goes off for people, that fills my bucket. So I know I'm a part of my identity is that I'm a teacher. And again, these are somewhat of the doing pieces, but it's like what makes up who I am. I know that I'm a connector. I know that I have the ability to influence people. I also know that I'm a healer, meaning that part of who I am is this person that is curious, this person that loves to listen to people and loves to ask questions to get them to find their teacher within. I know too that as I look at that, part of healing is not taking on someone else's emotions, not taking on someone else's energy, but giving that back to them so that they can heal themselves. Because if I take on somebody else's stuff, I'm not allowing them the capability to heal. So I give you those 4 kind of words. That doesn't make up all that I am. Like I'm also someone that is full of love. Like I love to show up in love. I don't love showing up in fear. I don't, like I posted something a few weeks ago about snapping about something and letting fear get the better of me. I just love to show up and love on people, really. And then how I do that is helping them uncover what their true identity is and who they are. And I know too that who I am is someone that's not broken. I'm someone that's whole. I'm someone that continues to look at things that get in my way, messages that I've heard since I was little, even up until, a year or two ago. Things that I thought were part of my makeup that maybe are not. And it was just the way I was raised or the culture that I lived in, whatever that case may be. I'm learning who I am. And for me, part of that is a faith base and my spirituality with that too. But that idea of knowing who I am, knowing what's okay for me and what's not okay for me, knowing that if it's not okay for me, it's okay for me to say to someone, I love, like, I'll give you an example. My best friend loves to work out in the morning. That is her gig. She loves to walk. She loves to work out. She does yoga. She offers up she's super generous. She offers up all sorts of free classes that she does. And I love spending time with her and the people that she works out with, but I'm not a morning workout person. I never have been. That's my time where I'm studying, I'm learning, I'm reading, doing those things. And for me, it's more of either during the day or right after work. And I've always been that way. I used to work out with a personal trainer after work. And so I had, I came to this realization that I needed to have this conversation. And it wasn't within judgment. It was more of like, I am so happy that that works for her. It just doesn't work for me. And that takes out the whole blame and shame game that we tend to play with each other. So if I know who I am at my core, then I don't fall into the law of relativity and place comparison with myself. I look at my journey. I try to look with the lens of curiosity. And do I still fall into those times when I beat myself up? You bet, right? Humanistic. But that feels very different than my purpose. My purpose feels like the push, like the drive. And I do feel very called to help people uncover what their true identity is, and then help them make a living doing, like, tapping into what that true identity is, because that's when you're leading a lit up life. It's not like, for me, I do love to travel, so I incorporate some of that in there, but part of the travel is the curiosity of understanding different cultures and different people. But that's not necessarily my true identity. Part of my true identity is this curiosity, is this ability to want to learn more about cultures, learn more about people, so that I can become more self-aware, and then hence ask questions and ask better questions and then ask better questions to help other people uncover that. So this idea of having a true identity, it's so important. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just say this. It's a little nerve-wracking for me to say this, but I'm going to start writing a book, because to me, what we do is the opposite. We create our identity based off of what we do, when really, if we understand who we are and what works for us, and we care deeply, but don't worry, and we don't care what other people think of us, because we know who we are, we're tapped into universe, or for me, it's God, then other things aren't as important. Like, I understand my worth. I understand that other people have every right to think what they want to think about me. I don't have to accept that. I don't have to be available for what they think of me, right, wrong, or indifferent, because I know who I am. I know that what I'm doing in my life, what I feel called to do, is because of my true identity. And therefore it doesn't feel like work. And there's times it does, don't get me wrong, but it's fulfilling to this place where I love doing what I do. I love showing up that way. I love being able to connect with people. Like, there's just so much about it that I love, that then it also creates this gain thinking, where I'm not looking at the gap in things. I'm looking at what's happening in my life, and I look at what's the happiness that's going on in my life. What's the joy that's going on in my life? Like, yeah, there's tough stuff. I've gone through hard things. I've had trauma in my life. And it's not about just pushing those under the rug. You got to feel the feels. You got to process through that. But for me, it's also about processing that and not sitting in it for too long, right? Like, if I'm sitting in it too long, I'm not tapping in. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're sitting in it for a while, that I'm placing judgment. That's just for me. I know I can't sit in it for very long, because then I start to spiral and my vibration goes way down. So I've really stepped in and leaned into an uncomfortable place for me about processing emotions, because it was easier for me not to feel anything, because if I felt the joy, you also have to feel the pain. That's a law of polarity, right? And I get to feel that pain. And so I do less and less to numb what those emotions are. And I do more and more, because I'm learning tools, and I've learned tools to be able to process anger and know that anger is okay when processed in a way that doesn't hurt others or yourself or damage things. I have learned to process through pain. And it doesn't mean that pain doesn't still come up. It comes up in layers. But I'm able to then use those tools to be able to process through that and let go of that emotion, so that I can show up as who my true identity really is. Because if I continue to sit in those emotions, then I start to doubt, then I lose belief, I lose worth in myself. I start to believe messages that are just not true. And frankly, it takes away your personal power. And so when you know your true identity, and I know I touched on this on the last solo episode, but when you know your true identity, it doesn't matter anymore what other people say. And does it hurt sometimes if people say things? Sure. Does it hurt? I have a couple of relationships in my life where I feel like if I don't reach out to them consistently, they wouldn't reach out to me. But because that relationship is important, I continue to reach out. And then I look at it and think, oh, wow, I have all these other people that do reach out. And so I feel gratitude. And I'm learning that when things happen and they feel that those like that pain and that anger piece of it, that I have gratitude for it because it pushes me to learn. It pushes me into my growth. And what I learn about that, I'm very grateful for. And so I'm still learning to do that. I'm still, as I look at things, learning to look at the gratitude. Like I think about a particular relationship I have that is super critical and important in my life. And the things that I've done and trying to understand the rules of engagement and doing those things while still taking care of myself and knowing what is okay for me and what I'm not available for and what I am available for. And really, which is also then learning to get out of codependency in relationships, but also trying to really look at that with gratitude and not being tied to the outcome as well, right? So when we know our true identity, we're not tied to the outcome. I show up as who I am, and I show up and literally do some grounding and prayer work to say, help me show up the way that I know that I am my true identity, that I am in alignment and I'm in congruency with who I am, so that I can show up and be of service in the world, and also let my ego stay, like the big ass self ego stay humble enough to accept the learning that I need to learn from other people and other events that happen in my life. So this one's a little bit of a shorter episode, but it's something that I kind of ruminated on, and have been ruminated on a little bit more in Italy. And, as I traveled by myself and learning a little bit more too about who I am. And it's okay to have preferences and it's okay to have desires. Like I loved traveling by myself, but I also know that I would love to travel with someone, whether that's a girlfriend or a love relationship or my son and daughter-in-law, whatever, my sisters. Like having a companion to travel with is fun. And so I want you to just, as you've listened to this episode, just kind of ruminate around, like, who are you without your job, without your roles that you play in this world? Who are you? And start to unpack that. And if you're looking at it and it looks like a clean slate and you're not sure at all, that's normal. But allow yourself to open up to messages that come into your heart, that come into your mind, and try really hard not to poo-poo those that come, right? We judge what comes into our head sometimes. So take the time, investigate that. Think about, who are you really? Because then, like, once I help clients figure that out, then it's about, okay, how do you monetize that? How do you take and put yourself into something that you do that gives you purpose, that gives you something to get up out of bed for in the morning, that then also brings you abundance? And some of that abundance is in financial, some of it's in relationships, some of it's in joy, whatever that is for my clients is what we figure out. And I do tend to focus on the money because we tend to have money stories that allow us we shut off bringing in income and having some of that financial freedom. So just think about who you are as you take those roles away, the titles of mother, father, brother, sister, teacher, whatever, like take those away and think about, who am I? Now it's okay to attach, like I said, teacher, connector, healer. That's the best way that I can describe like what makes up who I am. And, because I can say I'm love, but that's pretty broad. And so like helping yourself get to that point. So if you want some help with this, reach out to me. I would love to have more of a conversation with you. And you can find me out through the show notes. Take a look. My website's out there. And really think about what that true identity is and quit pushing yourself to a purpose. We don't all well, and part of why I get hung up on that is we look at purpose and then we think we all need to go be Mother Teresa, or we all need to be this like person that like goes out and like changes the world and doesn't do like anything for themselves. That's their calling. Awesome. We're not all called to do that. We don't all have that particular DNA makeup, right? This like spiritual DNA that says you're going to go do this. But we all have this like makeup of who we are and this true identity. And when we live out that true identity, that's what brings us joy. That's what brings us this ability to magnetize and basically what other people call manifestation, but magnetize how we want our life to look, because we're pretty powerful beings. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that. Everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week, and tune in for our next episode. Talk soon. Thanks so much for listening. The song Ride is co-written and sung by Miss Jackie Wilson and her collaborators Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee. And a huge shout out to them for allowing us to use this perfect song. Everyone have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you next week.
Find your own kind of happiness.